Welcome to CA Connect. I'm your host Preneth Rupesinghe, and today's session is on anti-bribery and corruption from policy to practice. Over the last 2 decades, the fight for bribery and corruption has taken a major turn. What was a single US law today has developed into frameworks with local legislation, with cross-border enforcement. Sri Lanka's recent Act No. 9 of 2023 reflects these global trends. It marks a shift towards a higher standard of enforcement. While implementation will be a challenge, implemented well will restore trust, will draw responsible investments, and will also create a level playing field for all. Today's discussion will focus around how policy translates into practice, from a macro sense to business, specifically how people would do the right thing. Today, I am joined by a distinguished panel who brings deep expertise from a legal, regulatory, and a corporate perspective. First, I'll introduce Mr. Chethiya Goonasekara, President's Counsel Attorney at Law, who's the Director commissioned to investigate bribery and corruption, CIABOC. Mr. Malik, Cader, former Director, Securities Exchange Commission, Attorney at Law. Mr. Yohan Perera, former Managing Partner of KPMG, Chartered Accountant, and currently an Independent Director of many corporates. To open up the session, the first question I will raise it with Mr. Chethiya Goonasekara. As someone who's deeply involved in the evolution of Sri Lanka's anti-corruption agenda, and with your extensive experience in the enforcement of policy, I want to raise the question, how has the Anti-Corruption Act of 2023 contributed to achieving its intended objectives? So basically, we want to understand where we are, what's the focus now, and what's the future.
Yeah, thank you, Preneth, for inviting us. And being one of the commissioners appointed 2024 January, the 3 commissioners have been working tirelessly from the day we were appointed. So our main scope has been to focus on institutional accountability and integrity within Sri Lanka, primarily through its investigation, prosecution functions related to bribery and corruption. So I feel that we are achieving our targets, and as the general public can see, we have completed investigations and now in the process of going to court and then prosecuting the offenders now. According to the new Anti-Corruption Act, after it came into effect in 2023 August, there are new sections which has been included in the new Anti-Corruption Act, like CIABOC can continue joint investigations, bribery of foreign public officials. Also, CIABOC can get the cooperation of international entities. Then also there's a change in the asset and declaration. If anybody wants to check on that, that person can go to our CIABOC website and then see the new asset and declaration form. Next year, of course, it will be a e-asset declaration form where every person will have to log into our website and then fill the form. And also now, according to the new act, we have brought in private sector bribery, sports bribery, then trading influence, bribery for procuring withdrawal of tenders, so forth. So as you can see, Preneth, every day in the news, we have either concluded one of our cases which has gone to court, and if not, we are starting a case. And also now the public is aware, unlike those days, public is aware that they have to report these matters to the Bribery Commission. So my humble request from any person is, you have to come forward and assist us. Without you coming forward and informing the Bribery Commission that somebody is asking for money, Bribery Commission cannot arrest or commence investigations unless there is a system where we can start an investigation on our own motion, but it's better if the public can come forward and inform us. Then it's easy for the bribery commission, because then there is somebody as a witness who will assist the commission. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Chethiya. So we talked about the macro perspectives on the bribery. Want to shift on to Malik. Malik, as both as a legal practitioner and former security exchange regulator, want to understand the new act also, the 2023 act also envisage on the private sector. The new legislation has expanded the statutory accountability of the private sector. I want to understand your experience on that, on advising corporate plans and how the corporates are embracing it and moving forward on that aspect. Malik?
Yes, thank you, Preneth, for giving us the opportunity to be present today. I think you're spot on when you said that the corporate sector is now having the CIABOC has jurisdiction over the private sector. I think Section 106 is very clear with bringing the private sector into the jurisdiction of CIABOC. What we need to understand in this whole scenario is, before 2023, we had an issue in this country. The issue we had was we were declared bankrupt, right? And then once we wanted to get out of this situation, I think international donors like the IMF placed very strict controls to say that anti-corruption should be high on the agenda. And as a result of that, right, I think our 6 points, right on the top was anti-corruption. And as a result of that, the government during that period, right, went through a fast-track process to bring this act. Generally, it will take about 5 or 6 years for the act to see the light of the day. But this, within 1.5 years, we got the act in September 2023. The act basically has come into force, and the private sector is captured within this particular act. Now, what does this mean to corporate Sri Lanka, right? Where the listed companies are concerned, I think the Colombo Stock Exchange and the SEC, they have taken corrective measures and mandated all the listed companies by October 2024 to have actually 12 policies, 11 or 12 policies. One of those policies should be anti-bribery corruption, right? So they have to, the board has to pass this, right? And it has to be published, right, on their website. So technically, the listed companies in Sri Lanka have adopted this particular policy. So now when you're talking about anti-corruption policies, right, for listed companies or other corporates, what it says is the board will have to first embrace this whole concept, right? They have to believe and they have to do what is correct where anti-bribery and corruption is concerned. So they have to adopt a policy. The policy is to do the right thing, to do it with integrity, right? And then to avoid any issues pertaining to corruption. So now once they have done this, you see, they also need to walk the talk. They need to walk the talk, not just basically have a document, right, on paper, right, in the boardroom. No, they have to exhibit it, right? It has to run in their blood. It has to filter down to the senior management, right? And filter even down to the minor staff of the organization. So the corporate Sri Lanka has a lot of work to do. I think institutions like the chartered accountants can get involved, right, in this whole process, because every member will have to sign a code of conduct. Every organization will have to have an integrity officer attached to the HR division of the company. Right? There are lots of things for that person to do. There's a gift rule which will come. If any staff member gets a gift, they have to report it. They have to sign a document and give it to the integrity officer. I got this gift from this particular company for this particular reason. Right? So all those have to be disclosed. So it's going to be a lot of work for the HR division, right, in terms of complying with this new Bribery Act.
Thank you, Malik. Moving on to Yohan itself. Yohan, with your experience as a long-serving independent director of many companies and a former senior audit leader, I want to understand what key shifts have you observed in corporate governance and compliance structures, especially in the levels of policy making, board governance, and internal controls with the Anti-Corruption Act coming into effect itself, Yohan?
Preneth, at the very outset, I want to thank you for inviting me for this event. Fortunately for me, the companies that I'm involved with primarily have what you know as standards of business conduct, because that says what is right and what is wrong. So once you have standards of business conduct, it helps. The Anti-Corruption Act is only reiterating the message which is already there in the standards of business conduct and says what should be done, what cannot be done. So therefore, the Anti-Corruption Act has really helped these corporates to enforce the standards of conduct even more robustly, right? So that is something that was very useful for the corporates. So it all depends on the culture you have and the leadership that you give to that. So therefore, as Malik explained, the policies have already been published. So now it's walking the talk, right? So the companies have to have the right processes in place to implement these policies. So for that, the companies have given the response, most of the companies have given the responsibility to CFO to ensure that these policies, anti-corruption is the desired results take place. And therefore, they have to give a quarterly sign-off saying that nothing has come to light where any of these provisions have been breached. Okay. In addition to that, there is the audit committees get the internal auditor of the respective companies to examine the transactions, and there's a report that is given to the board if there is anything that comes about. So therefore, there are processes in place. But if at all, where the Anti-Corruption Act was created as some small issue was, say, for example, seasonal compliments. Okay, because obviously you know that there is a receiver and a giver. So sometimes the receivers were not familiar with the provisions of the Anti-Corruption Act. So therefore, although the corporates had a zero tolerance for gifts, there were some people who were rather disappointed that this policy has come in place. But now I can see that with awareness being created, they have also accepted, and that it's a zero tolerance for gifts. And as Malik said, even if you receive a gift, you got to maybe a very small threshold is something that has been envisaged, maybe 5,000 to 10,000, nothing more than that. But sometimes you may not know the value. So therefore, if you are not sure of what you are getting, then you must report that to your senior management and say you have received this, and make sure that it's entered in the gifts register. So once it's entered in the gifts register, there is a process to record whatever gifts that have been given. Ideally, we should not accept, right? We should not accept any gifts. But sometimes, it creates very unpleasantness between with your business partners. But then now people have accepted that gifts are not accepted, and they don't give gifts. So that's good in a way, right? And I can see the awareness that's being created among the general public, and that this Anti-Bribery Corruption Act has a criminal force, and therefore the directors also have to ensure that they take responsibility, and they have put in place provisions to ensure that the policies are effectively adopted.
Thank you, Yohan. Thank you. In terms of, we spoke about the framework which the Act has given us. In terms of implementation itself, want to understand from a macro sense, what are the preventive strategies which has really worked on, like from a process point of view, from a support point of view, what is really working now, and what is the focus in terms of mechanism, methodologies, and what else is required for you to virtually take it forward in terms of the macro level anti-corruption prevention activity that you're continuing in the society itself?
Yeah. Now, in the new act, we have this whistleblower protection where we request the general public come forward, give us information. Even if you are working for a company, you can come forward and give us information. And if the company is harassing you, inform us, we will give you protection. We can give you protection because according to the new act, we are bound to give protection to whistleblowers who give us information. So, from the CIABOC perspective, that is what we expect from the general public. Please come forward, because sometimes what has happened is people tend to offer. They make a mistake, then to get out of the issue, they offer money to somebody. So what we try to educate people, we tell them don't give money to anybody, because sometimes you want to get the house permit passed. So to do that fast, you try to offer some money to the person who is doing it. But if that person is not doing it, after you submit all the documents, if he is delaying, please inform us, because we are ready to take action. There are certain instances where we have been very successful when the general public inform us. Say a person who has an issue inform us, this is the issue. Then we call for a report from that particular institution. When we send our letter, they quickly start an inquiry, and then sometimes what is necessary has happened. What should be done has happened. So by sending a letter itself, it shows that sometimes people are public authorities who have failed to take action, have taken action when we send the letter. So likewise, we feel, because now just it's like 1.5 years after that came into effect. So most of what should be achieved, we have achieved. So now what we are trying to do is, when the general public inform us, we try to somehow or other help them, so that then it's easy for us, or easy for the person who is informing us to get their things done.
Thank you, Chethiya. Also want to understand on the same question itself. You spoke about whistleblowing and people reaching out, and also based on that taking accountability and ultimately how you drive. I also want to, from a methodology point of view, right, in terms of driving digitalization, different mechanisms, you have also, I think CIABOC also has the role of educating people and building policy. On those aspects, is any work being done where how does CIABOC get involved in the process?
CIABOC has a preventive unit. So now when a company request, sometimes even government institutions request from us, the preventive officers go and deliver education lectures, right? So that then they are educated. So right now these internal affairs units which have been created by the Presidential Secretariat, so for that also we are giving our resource personnel to educate the internal affairs unit personnel who are in that internal affairs unit. Other thing is, now when it comes to digitalization, from next year onwards, the asset declaration form would be you have to fill the asset declaration form online. You have to fill it online, and still this year also it will be a hard copy. We are accepting a hard copy, but from next year onwards you have to fill the asset declaration form online. And also I personally feel certain things, now say for instance, if you have CCTV cameras installed in the institutions where there are a lot of people who come, of course you can monitor as to what is happening. And also now say for instance, if you take the highway, if you have a ETC system where the delays, yes, part of it, delay is minimized. And also if there is a ETC system, actually the government would get the revenue beforehand. So my recommendation is for the government to digitalize. I think there is a process in the government where they are digitalizing the systems. So to make it fast, so that then it's easy for the government to manage.
So it's from one aspect, from a revenue collection, it's efficient, and also it also avoids pilferage and intervention, also digitalization on its own.
Yes, that's it. And also minimum human intervention. You should have minimum human intervention so that then it's easy.
Thank you, Chethiya. Malik, moving on to you, want to understand from a corporate perspective and also as a practicing lawyer itself, what are the trends that you're seeing on this area, largely in terms of the problems which are coming up? Is the implementation of the act, the way that the Sri Lankan corporates going about, does it really prevent it? And the problems which, what are the trends that you're seeing?
Actually, as Yohan quite rightly mentioned, there are companies, a set of companies who have basically embraced this whole thing, and they're basically moving forward in terms of the act. But there is also a certain amount of other companies who are basically, who have not fully implemented, because for them it's a culture change. This whole thing is a culture change, right? You need resources, right? You need people to do it. The question is why, all that kind of stuff. So that is why we need to see one or two prosecutions in terms of the private sector for people to wake up, right? There should be a wake-up call. So hopefully that wake-up call will basically come very soon, and then looking at those things. One of the other things I would want to touch up is sponsorships, right? Sponsorships are one of those things, areas which companies will have to now be very careful. I know some companies now have sponsorship committees. They fully go through, right, the sponsorship proposal to see whether the object of that particular sponsorship, their product, right, is basically highlighted, and there is value for money in what they are spending. You know, good old days, right? Because you know someone, you know you want to get some favors done, you basically go and basically sponsor the event. One example is that, there's a school sports meet, right? The booklet, publication of the booklet, right? So-and-so's daughter is there. A high-ranking government official's daughter is there, right? So the letter comes to the company to give a back full-page advertisement, right? Good old days, it happened, right? But now it cannot happen. That gets captured within this. So corporates will have to be mindful of this, right? I'm just giving you an example. There can be bigger pictures than this, and they should take note of this, right? So to say this, whether Sri Lanka could be cleaned up tomorrow in terms of anti-corruption, it will take a little while. We cannot get to the number one at once. So that is why there's a process. Not that it's going to take us maybe 25, 30 years. So we need to have, like the CIABOC, we need to have a process to take the whole thing, right, and accelerate it, right? So that is the task. So the commitment has to come right from the top.
So Malik, virtually what you're saying is spoke a lot on especially the sponsorship committees per se, organizations. With that itself, you can bring in governance rather than one person deciding on it or two person deciding on it.
The committee has to basically decide on it. Now, I know some companies, right, have these committees, right, and they have to sign off, right? They have to give a good reason why this sponsorship has to be given. What benefit is the company going to get? Or is anyone else getting some benefit because of this, right? Are things that need to be deliberated. So as you said, governance, right, will certainly come in.
Thank you, Malik. Yohan, moving on to you itself, in terms of the ease of doing business, like ease of doing business per se, whilst I think Malik spoke about, obviously for the country, the standards will go up, but internally, we are going through a phase of change. People are changing, and also the act has come into effect. And being an independent director of many companies itself, practically you must be coming across quite a lot of issues in terms of how do you keep that balance during this phase of change itself. A few thoughts on it, like how you have gone about and what's the direction?
I think quite a lot depends on tone at the top. Okay, so because if you have the right culture and the right attitude and the right leadership, the rest of it is very easy. So what I would look for, it is a very professionally run company, right, which gives the right message to the staff, is zero tolerance for bribery and corruption. So once that happens, the rest of it falls into place. Okay, but of course, as Chethiya said, there are certain government departments that has been digitalized to facilitate, to make sure that all this can be very efficiently implemented. So those things are there. I'm not saying no, but the companies are doing the best they can at their level to ensure that there is zero tolerance for bribery and corruption. And I see that I'm involved with companies which are professionally well run and give the right tone at the top so that no one will try to do anything too smart. And also one more thing, as Malik said, there were 12 policies that were uploaded. One is the whistleblower policy. So whistleblower policy is one mechanism that could be used because someone wants to report bribery and corruption. So therefore, whistleblower policy will complement the anti-bribery and corruption policy that is there. So therefore, as I see it, companies are using this Bribery and Corruption Act to say that, look here, we have to reinforce the zero tolerance for bribery and corruption, and therefore the message is well and clear.
So Yohan, perspectively, you are taking a zero tolerance approach, and like you represent larger companies itself, and I think as a private sector and a corporate sector as a total itself, if you all take a position of that nature, in terms of, the alignment with the authorities also coming into the authorities, both the authorities, the people who are working on the authorities coming into the same wavelength and having that level playing field, you could get to that place very fast. That's what you're saying.
Yes. So that's what the companies I'm involved are doing. But there could be situations where the competitors do something different. So, but you might suffer once or twice, but after all, thereafter, you will fall into place, because after all the corporates are doing business, right? So they got to be on a level playing field. So if the other party gives an inducement and here you cannot give it, then you're going to be in trouble. But then it's a call that the company has to take. So if they are saying zero tolerance for bribery and corruption, then there you are. So that's the position behind.
And also, probably on the longer run, you as a corporate, you start to build more respect, even with those parties, because it will start to change. My final question also goes to the total panel also around that. The tone which really came up is the culture part, and also the tone at the top, the leadership tone itself on this topic. We all know that, it's something global trends have gone ahead of us. We are starting on this. We are not the last person. Malik said we are the 35th. There are probably another 160 countries worse than us. Having said that, want to understand your each perspective, from starting from Chethiya, from a macro sense, and from Malik, on the corporate side and the legislative side, and from Yohan from the corporate and the business side. In terms of change of culture, what is, in terms of this, what is the effective leadership, what's the tone, and basically understanding of from their each perspective, like you will have to, Chethiya, speak about from the macro sense itself, how it's changing and what more it needs to be done.
Now, Sri Lanka, our people, the issue is most of them don't want to change. And but when they go abroad, they change overnight. And then they criticize Sri Lanka. Okay, in Sri Lanka, you find garbage on the road. But when they go abroad, and when in that particular country, when there are rules and regulations stating that you can't throw garbage onto the road, the person who threw garbage in Sri Lanka goes to that other country and collect garbage the way it has been stated, and then give it to the person who is collecting garbage. And also likewise, when you go to another country, when you are driving, you will follow all rules and regulations. When you are walking, you will follow all rules and regulations of that country. But when you come back to Sri Lanka, from the time you enter the airport, you will start breaking all the rules and regulations. You come out, you throw all the garbage that you have, or you start spitting on the road. You will not be using the pedestrian crossing to cross. So likewise, our people doesn't want to change. But this is a good example, this Anti-Corruption Act. I think people are now, little by little, they are changing. Another important aspect which came into effect from this act is conflict of interest, which I forgot to mention earlier, where if you have a particular interest, you have to declare that interest. Okay, I know this person. So then earlier what happened was, you don't declare, you will help that person, and sometimes you might get something out of it. But now it is a duty. A duty has fallen on you to declare that interest, so that then you are duty bound to declare. And then if you don't declare, there is a penalty on you. If you don't declare, there is a penalty on you. And also, now, earlier, what happened was, sometimes people come, they say, X asked for money from me, which is a false statement. Right? Now, from the new act, if you give a false statement, or false information, then you can be prosecuted. Likewise, obstructing the duties of the commission. Now say, for instance, there is a witness who is assisting the commission. If you try to obstruct that witness going to court, coming to CIABOC, then also you can be charged. So likewise, there are so many good things that has happened over this new act. And then also, if you take the jurisdiction, even say if you are overseas, if you are involved in a bribery and corruption activity, you can be charged. So there are so many good things that has happened in the new act, and I hope and pray that people of Sri Lanka will support the anti-bribery policy of the Sri Lankan government.
Thank you, Mr. Chethiya. Malik, your perspective on the culture and the tone on the top?
Yeah, I think quite rightly we hit the nail right at where it should be hit. And quite rightly, the tone has to come right from the top. As you see, whether the implementation of this particular act, it is challenging. It's not easy, right? It is very challenging for corporates because corporates will have to dress up for the occasion, not simply do lip service, right? You need to dress up for the occasion and have these little things which we just mentioned implemented within the corporates. One other aspect is integrity, right? Integrity is one of the things which I think CIABOC is focusing. There's also a book which they have published on integrity. So you need to have people with integrity working in corporates. Now that is challenging. How does the HR department selects a person with integrity? I think now there are certain tests which have been done, right, where corporates are concerned, HR is concerned, at least to get a feel whether the person they are recruiting is a person with integrity. So you need to have, because you must remember, no amount of rules and regulations, you're going to make a crooked man straight. A crooked man is always crooked. He'll find a loophole to creep. Okay? So that is why. So this is a culture change. My ideal thing where corporate governance in any country is concerned, it will take about 5 to 10 years for that transformation, because it's a new generation which is coming, right? From grade 1 onwards, you need to inculcate that whole concept of integrity, corporate governance, and take them there.
Yohan, your thoughts?
I think I would look at it this way. Because of maybe I have come across a culture where I've been at KPMG. So I was always in a different culture where this bribery, anti-bribery and corruption was something that was on for the last 10 years, right? I've been going through training for the last 10 years. So it is something not new for me, but I can see the corporates are embracing positively. And all that depends on the right tone at the top, as I mentioned earlier, and because corporates want to run professionally. And I think they can now say, look here, they want to have zero tolerance for bribery corruption. Here is an act that will facilitate the whole process. So they understand that. So what Malik said was at the down the line, how do we ensure that it's happened? But I think having a very strong message from the top helps in ensuring that zero tolerance for bribery corruption is something that happens. And with the whistleblower protection also there, I'm confident that this will be a game changer in the private sector.
And I also feel 1 or 2 prosecutions from the CIABOC, right? Good prosecutions on the private sector will be a huge eye-opener.
My request, the last request is for the private sector to come forward. Come forward and inform us, give us information, then we would be able to help. Because most of the people, they talk to us, but certain people, they are not willing to come forward and give information. So if we can use this opportunity to inform the private sector, please come forward, assist the CIABOC, so that in return, CIABOC will assist your company.
Thank you, Chethiya and Malik and Yohan, for participating on the CA Connect session. So the message is clear today. Bribery and corruption is not just an unethical activity. It's a high-risk matter to be addressed by individuals and corporates. So with that, we come to the end of the program. So until we join with the next CA Connect Point of View program, goodbye from all of us.